Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear fellows, today we discuss some of the special tax provisions as introduced by the government of Pakistan for builders and developers. So we look into the detail of all those provisions thoroughly and try to take out the crux that what advantages try to be given by the government of Pakistan to the builders and developers under this scheme with its all prospective effects. So first of all, I start with the fixed tax regime as introduced by the government for the builders and developers. So firstly, the government has given the process of the formulation and the treatment of the income derived by the builders and developers under this special tax provisions. So it is categorically provided under the special tax provisions that the income under this regime will be treated as a separate class of income. So it can be deemed that if the builder and developer earn income under their respective heads, then it should be dealt as a separate class of income, or it would be distinguishable from other incomes. And secondly, the process of its formulation is also provided under this regime, which is provided that the tax shall be computed on the basis of per square foot construction and per square yard land development for builders and developers respectively. So we get to know that square foot construction rate and per square yard development rate has been introduced under this regime. So one thing is quite clear from the clause A that it would be dealt as a separate class of income, and secondly, the per square foot construction and per square yard land development rules have been introduced for the purpose of formulation of the income derived by the builders and developers. Now we move on towards the exemptions, that how this scheme can be taken in favor of the builders and developers. So if we look into exemptions, that exemptions to section 153 is provided under this regime. So it is provided that the builders and developers shall not be required to withhold tax under section 153 on purchase of building material. So one exemption is categorically provided to the builders and developers, that they are no more required to withhold the tax under section 153. So what is section 153? Section 153 head is payment for goods, services and the contracts. So wherever builders and developers are engaged in purchase of the material, they shall be required to withhold the tax. But what are the consequential effects of these exemptions? They are no more required to withhold the tax. But simultaneously, exception to this general rule is also expressly laid under these provisions. So what is the exceptional rule? Exceptional rule is this: in case if the builder and developer are engaged in purchase of the steel and cement, then they should have to deduct the tax whilst holding transaction. And in term of services, at the time of getting services, acquisition of services of plumbing and shuttering, they shall be required to withhold the tax other than those provided by the companies. So one complete hierarchy is introduced by the government of Pakistan by applying its judicious mind. And why it is done, why this step is taken by the government? In order to attract the investors to Pakistan and to bring employment for the next generations. So I am of the view that very positive step, very positive step is taken by this government. Now we move on that what is the process of the declaration of this income in the net amounts. So it is provided that declaring of net wealth by the builders and developers make them eligible, it holds them eligible to take credit of the income equivalent to 10 times of tax paid under this schedule. So the proportional rate is provided under this special tax provision, which is to the extent of 10%. So if the declaration is made, then the amount taken will be 10 times of the tax paid amount. So now we move towards the next point, which relates to rules for low cost housing. So it is provided that tax rates will be reduced by 10% in case of low cost housing. Tax rate will be reduced by 90%. So the 90% rate is provided in case of low cost housing. So this is very positive step taken by the government, and in which privilege is provided to the investors out of the course, merely for attracting the business towards Pakistan. Now we move on towards one of the most significant, most eminent exemption provided to the builders and developers, which relates to non-application of section 111 of ITO 2001. So what is a section 111? Section 111 of ITO relates to unexplained income or assets. So it empowers the tax authorities to penalize the individuals, to penalize the persons in case if their investment is from unexplained sources and they have unexplained income or assets. But what would be the treatment, what would be the consequential effect of the exemptions of section 111 of ITO? So it is provided under this special tax provision that exemption from provision of section 111 of ITO 2001 on construction activity till June 2022. So the stipulated term is provided for all the builders and developers for seeking benefit of the exemption of section 111 of ITO 2001. So it is provided the provisions of section 111 shall not apply if investment is made by person from now till 30th June 2022 on following. So one time limit is laid down by the government if the persons engaged in construction activity invest money, invest revenue in this stipulated time period, then they will be exempted from the accountability of any kind. Or this government has provided advantage to the constructors out of the way. It is more or less like an amnesty scheme introduced for the persons engaged in construction business. So open ground is provided by the government to the investors to invest without any queries. So to what thing it relates? It relates to the purchase of land, constructing any structure on the same in the said period. So the person can purchase the land from money, with money, or construct any structure over that land. He should not be held accountable. And constructing any structure on already owned land. If the person already owned any land and he makes a structure over that own land, then he should not be held accountable in any respect. And the amount of such investment within the given period will be allowed to be incorporated in the wealth statement. So it makes all those persons engaged in the construction business eligible to claim that amount, to incorporate that amount in the wealth statement, and it is provided under this provisions that they should not be held accountable in any respect. Now we move towards next topic, which is rationalization of CGT. What is CGT? CGT is capital gains tax. So reduction in sales tax on construction material and CGT holding period and remedial measures for valuation of real estate is provided by this government. So firstly, it is provided that CGT holding period for constructed property be reduced from 4 to 3 years. So it particularly relates to the constructed property, and the period is reduced from 4 to 3 years, as was the case prior to 2013. So the retrospective effects are going to be given by this government through the insertion of these provisions. Now we move forward that CGT holding period for real estate oblique plots may remain 8 years. However, the rate of tax may be significantly reduced on sliding scale from fourth year onward. So CGT holding period for the real estate may remain 8 years. So it is not in variation, it may remain same. And along with this, the process for fresh valuation is also going to be introduced by the FBR in coalition with the real estate organizations in order to streamline all the things. And further, the rationalization oblique reduction in sales tax on construction material is also provided in order to bring down the cost of construction. And the proposal is given that sales tax and excise duties levied on construction material need to be suitably reduced. So proposal is given in order to bring down the cost of construction. And furthermore, exemption of taxes on first house is also provided, which provides that construction, purchase, sale of first house should be exempted from all taxes including capital gain tax. So it is moreover done in order to bring a flow in the market, in order to bring revenue in the market. And the FBR is also looking to frame some special circles in order to expedite and to ensure the transparency in the tax collection system to the extent of persons engaged in construction and development business. Now we move towards one of the most important topic of this overall discussion, which relates to the incentives provided by the provincial revenue authorities. So it is provided that sales tax on builders and developers at the time of sale of property be levied by all provinces and ICT at fixed rate of rupees 50 per square foot for builders and rupees 100 per square yard for developers. So the fixed rate regime is introduced for the builders and developers, which could be levied at the time of sale of the property, and on whom the authority is conferred. The authority is bestowed upon the provinces to look the process of the deduction of the tax. And further, the exemption of sales tax on construction services with exemption of fixed rates. It provided that sales tax on construction services be exempted by all provinces provided the builders and developers are chargeable to sales tax at fixed rates mentioned above at the time of sale of property. So one very important initiative taken is this, that sales tax on construction services be exempted by all provinces with the exception of the fixed rates as mentioned above. So complete hierarchy is introduced in order to bring transparency, in order to scrutinize the things. And already I discussed the low cost housing, that what directions, what dimension is introduced for low cost housing. The provincial authorities be completely provincial housing authorities be completely exempted from provincial sales tax by all provinces in case of low cost housing. So if any person tend to take advantage of the low cost housing, the investor wants to invest in that particular area, then exemption is provided in all respects. And one very important thing that I am going to discuss is clubbing provincial sales tax and other miscellaneous duties. So I want to narrate it before you in a same form as it is provided. It is given here that all provincial and municipal taxes, oblique duties, oblique fees, levies, charges on transfer, oblique registration of urban properties to be clubbed under one head. So one window operation is going to be introduced by this government by clubbing all these taxes and duties under the one head and charge at the rate of 2% of valuation. So the rate of charging is 2% and they all clubbed under one head. So this initiative is worthwhile. Now we look that e-stamping is introduced, which is provided that e-stamping system being introduced by all provinces in line with this system already introduced by Punjab needs to be expedited. So e-stamping system as introduced in the Punjab is also going to be spread, also going to be introduced in other provinces in order to bring transparency in system. And moreover, one window operation is also going to be introduced by the government, and one very important factor upon which the government is working is this NOC regime be replaced with the compliance of bylaw regimes. So it brings a flow in the business class. This process of NOC will be curtailed and the process of bylaw regimes will be followed by the government in order to bring efficaciousness, in order to expedite, in order to speed up the processing. And it is already discussed by the Prime Minister of Pakistan that status of industry to the construction sector. So industry it is provided that PM has already approved the status of industry for construction sector. So this is very positive initiative taken that it is introduced as an industry. And now we move towards the housing oblique mortgage financing, that what mayas are taken for the mortgage financing. In line with 7% interest rate offered to industry for greenfield project, subsidy oblique low rates, preferably 6%, be afforded for housing mortgage of 100,000 low cost housing unit. So this exemption, this privilege, this prerogative is provided out of the course, and construction of which is planned to be initiated in the current year. So all these steps are taken by the government of Pakistan in order to bring employment in Pakistan, to bring easiness in the tax rates, and to attract the foreign investors that they come to Pakistan with their money and to invest in construction and development business in order to bring employment here. So dear fellows, I hope that you learned a lot about this scheme as tend to be introduced by the government of Pakistan, and I hope that you come towards the construction business and development business. And in case if you need further assistance, then my phone number is given. You may call anytime for getting to know more and more things regarding these projects. Thank you very much. Stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.